Welcome into the Awesemo.com MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for Saturday's UFC Vegas 56, an early card there in Las Vegas on Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time start, 1 o'clock for myself and Pete here on the East Coast with the prelims. Of course, we'll be here on Saturday for live before a lot. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Talk about some of the props over at Prize Picks later on in the show. Of course, we have got a ton of fights to break down over the next hour. As always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Good afternoon, Pete. How's it going, man?
What's going on, brother? Good card. Well, not good card. Lots of fights. Back to having fights. A good stretch of them. So I can't wait.
So I'll give you a little behind the scenes here. Me and Pete, we were recording a show last night. You can check over the Odd Shopper channel, the MMA Best Bets, and neither one of us had looked at the DraftKings salaries, FanDuel salaries to do a show or not out. And Pete's like, hey, man, you want to look at Aaron Blanchfield's salary? Because he already knew. And I was like, ooh, that is a pricey salary.
It is. But, man, it's reflective of her skill. It really is. Like, she's so talented. I have high hopes for her. She might be like my Tom Aspinall for the women's MMA, truthfully. Like, I really love Manon Fiorot, but I think that Blanchfield might have taken it.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about her ceiling is so high. We'll talk about her later on the show. Of course, Damon Jackson got a new opponent earlier this week, a man coming off a title win at LFA, got a split decision 25-minute war and returning here in a month later. So we'll talk about that as we do go on. But Pete, let's just get right into these fights. Heavyweight matchup, Alexander Volkov taking on Giazino, Rozenstruik. Giazino, Rosenstruck, the underdog in this one. He is 7,600 over on DraftKings, 8,600 for Alexander Volkov. And, Pete, when I think about this fight and I think about, Rozenstruck as a guy who, you got to avoid the big bombs that he has in his hands. He's not a guy that is going to be extremely active in the fight. Where you got Volkov coming into this matchup where, if anyone saw the article, it's over at UFC.com. He talked about how he changed up, how he prepared for this matchup. He went to the mountains in Russia as opposed to training there in Moscow, finished up his camp in LA at Black House. To me, if you're Rozenstruck, and by the way, Rozenstruck kind of alluded to the fact yesterday that he believes that Volkov will go the takedown route. I don't know about that one. I just don't see that one happen. Look, I just think as I look at this fight, Pete, and in terms of GPPs, I want to get on both sides of the equation here because obviously, even though you do have low volume Rozenstruck, the knockout it could potentially be there. But why do I think of Volkov and I just think he's going to try to put this fight up against the fence and make this kind of a dirty clinch type fight.
He could, right? Like, and you mentioned mountains, so I'm all in. I'm all behind Volkov because I really like Volkov, truthfully. It's a lean towards Volkov. I do respect the power of Giazino Rozenstruck, and because of the power, you have to have exposure to Rozenstruck. Just because he has that death touch, and he can really just turn the tide of a fight with one shot. His problem is his volume and just being a little lackadaisical at times and falling behind and allowing his opponents to dictate the pace and the volume of the fight, waiting for the perfect shot. And the perfect shot's not always going to come. I don't necessarily think like Rozenstruck touches your chin and you automatically go out, but he has like unbelievable power for the division, and it is heavyweight MMA, so anything can happen. I do love the skill set of Alexander Volkov, and it's primarily just it might be like a buy low spot where everybody's down on Volkov because he lost to my boy Tom Aspinall. But I don't think that he looked great in that performance. But I think it's more so about Tom Aspinall than it is Volkov. Just having the threat of the takedown is going to make you a little gun shy. And I think that's what you saw with Volkov is just not knowing what to do. You can't necessarily go out there and have your full set of skills on display. Whereas, in the stand-up fight against Giazino Rozenstruck, you can get back to long-range attacks, good front kicks to the body, just setting up head kicks. And having superior footwork. So I am leaning in Volkov's favor. I am predicting a Volkov decision just because Giazino won't necessarily push the pace. He has mentioned that he wants to push the pace and get a little bit more aggressive, but you know how this is with the media and people talking about the fights. You don't necessarily back it until you see it in the cage because people say anything. We would like to believe that Rozenstruck goes out there and is a little bit more aggressive at his salary of 7,600. One of the best underdogs on the slate because of its 5 rounds to work with and 5 rounds to possibly find the chin of Volkov. But I am leaning in the more superior skilled fighter in Volkov's favor.
I think the only question is a 25-minute decision, can Volkov be optimal?
That's a good question, right? Like in all of his fights, the most takedowns that he has attempted is 2. So I think that he could take Rozenstruik down. I do believe that Volkov has the, more well-rounded game if he wants to do that. I don't think that he needs to do that, but whenever you get hit, sometimes it kind of forces your hand, right? Like it's, oh man, I'm rocked on the feet and I'm just going to tie up with him and take him down. I do think that there is a possibility of Volkov having a sneaky finish as well. Giazino Rozenstruik on the kickboxing circuit is great at being the hammer. And you find this a lot with a lot of fighters, especially in heavyweight MMA. They're swinging small gloves, and he's been knocked out in the past, once against Francis Ngannou, once in his kickboxing career as well. So like I view Volkov striking like at the highest level. So I'm not counting out a Volkov finish, but I think the more likely scenario is Volkov coasting to a decisive win.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Volkov in this one, but I think in terms of when we're talking about a GPP aspect, I don't mind getting the Rosenstruck because of that knockout ability. Of course, give us a like and subscribe so you keep up with all of these shows we have on Awesemo.com, DFS offers, giveaways, and so much more. Of course, once you're subscribed, be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when a show goes live on the channel. And of course, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member and you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall, it says free premium tools and data are MLB player projections and MLB ownership projections. Of course, we also have you covered all day long. Got the MLB Live Before Lock later on today. And then, of course, we'll have you covered for tonight's NBA Finals Game 1 deeper dive starting at 7 and Live Before Lock starting at 8 p.m. Now, the co-main event of this fight card will be Dan Ige taking on Evelev, a massive betting favorite. This one, a 4-1 betting favorite. Dan Ige over a 3-1 betting underdog in this one. Of course, Dan Ige, 6,800 is his salary over on DraftKings. For Evelev, 9,400. Pete, let me just put it to you like this. If Chan Sung Jung can get 3 takedowns against Dan Ige, how many can Evelev get?
I hate that narrative. I truthfully hate that narrative. And the reason I hate that is because like Chan Sung Jung, like when a fight is, when you're going up against a striker in Chan Sung Jung, who I think has an underrated ground game, sneaky submission ability, MMA math like that doesn't necessarily work. I think you can get caught off guard by having somebody pull out takedowns when you're not expecting it, and I think that's what happened in the Chan Sung Jung fight. I do think that Evelev can get takedowns in this fight for sure. I like Dan Ige, and I really wanted to back him here in this situation because like Dan Ige is my guy. I really like him. He has good boxing, solid jiu-jitsu, like really good jiu-jitsu actually, but it's the wrestling defense where, yeah, he can get controlled on the mat. So I understand what you're saying. But I also think like some of those takedowns are credited because it was just, it caught him off guard. And Evelev, I think the hype is real. I think that he's good. I don't necessarily think that he's like the next big thing, but I think that he's very solid, comes from a good camp. Same with Dan Ige, though, coming from a good camp in Extreme Couture. So I'm interested to see the clash here. I don't like the odds, truthfully. Like, I think it's far too wide, and I think Ige could actually make this a much more competitive fight than the odds suggest. So, like, I think everybody might want to back Evelev here this week, and I understand it because against Hakeem Dawodu, he went 9 of 13 in the takedown department and scored 138, which completely just killed the slate. He went 4 of 11 against Enrique Barzola, which, Enrique Barzola is a talented wrestler in his own right. 5 of 16 against Sungwoo Choi, scored 110. I think that there's plenty of options out there, and Ige can make this competitive. And, if he threatens with a guillotine, similar to how Nick Lentz did, maybe Evelev is a little bit more wise to the takedown. So I'm back in Evelev, but I think that Ige needs some more respect here.
I mean, look, Ige, for the most part, has primarily fought against strikers in the UFC. Now, I will counter that with Mirsad Bektic had 3 takedowns against him back in the day. So I think that's something to thought there. Listen to Dan Ige and his chat with the media yesterday. Kind of the things that really stuck out to me was he spent a month with Justin Gaethje in Colorado, and Gaethje was talking to him about his mindset against Gavin Tucker. And basically the line was, Justin Gaethje says, "Didn't you want to F him up all hours of the day?" And like that to me is like the perfect Justin Gaethje quote. Like you think Justin Gaethje, that's what you think of. But like, Pete, that's like a mindset you got to have, though.
Yeah, I mean, but and then Dan Ige, following that visit with Gaethje, went and trained with Henry Cejudo, and you're talking about two opposite ends of the spectrum. You're talking about a guy who has such a calculated mindset and thinks about the probability of winning, and Justin Gaethje going there just kind of like that just scrap mentality. So
Yeah,
I think it's a blend of both.
He also talked about the fact of he did a Russian like mini camp, and like he gets asked about this after he brings it up. And like he's very sketchy on the details of who was involved. It kind of sounds like it was around the time of when the Ukraine-Russia scandal started, and maybe he didn't want to kind of allude to maybe who he was working with, which I probably would raise a lot of questions. I think a lot of people maybe in Las Vegas area would have raised a lot of questions. But the thing that he talked about, he said he was grappling every single day and was sparring 3 times a week, which is something that he says he normally just doesn't do. And you could tell that he understands the pace that is coming. But I thought one of the more interesting things that he did say, he goes, even though Evelev knows he's got the wrestling in his back pocket, if he thinks he's better than you on the feet, he won't even go to the wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking shots on Dan Ige here, truthfully. Just, some dart throws. I put him in the dart throw category just because, up until last week, we had a large stretch of 6,000 fighters coming through. Yeah. And it doesn't happen that often, but man, we were on such a streak that I can't avoid it. And I also think that the odds are just a little too wide. So I do think that there's some value on taking shots at Dan Ige, but everything I've seen of Evloev and just the control time could be enough to get this decision win.
Yeah, it's one of those things, even at his price point, 6,800, if he goes out there and he gets a 3-round decision at 6,800, it's going to allow you to get to so much there. Let's move over to the next matchup, between the Brazilian and the United States fighter, as we got Mike Trizano taking on Lucas Almeida. Lucas Almeida, he is 7,100. Trizano 9,100. Slight betting favorite here, a little over 2-1 betting favorite here for Mike Trizano. The reach exactly the same to these two guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Almeida is going to open some eyes this weekend just because of how aggressive he is and how talented he is on the feet, and typically a prolific finisher. This is a massive step up in competition against Michael Trizano, though, if I'm being for real. I think that Michael Trizano, being the Ultimate Fighter winner, hasn't necessarily showcased all of his skills inside the octagon, and it's largely due to his low output. His low volume is somewhat where it's lackadaisical, and we sit there and we're like, okay, well, he fell behind significantly against Hakeem Dawodu, but he does have a nice victory of Ludovic Klein, which definitely has aged well. I will say that I listened to Trizano talk about how he wants to find a finish, which I found interesting, similar to how like Caitlin Chukagian wants to find a finish, but he's talking about picking up his volume, and I think that his coaches have definitely looked at it and said, hey, we need more output. And he will need more output in this situation against Lucas Almeida, who will be pressing the issue as he did on his Contender Series fight and as he has done on the local scene. I think that sneaky takedowns are there for Trizano. This is a fight where I will be sprinkling in the underdog Almeida, just because if Trizano doesn't go out there and increase his volume, right? Like this is all depending. Like he may go out there and just fight the same fight that he always does, barely breaking 130, significant strikes thrown. He threw that against Hakeem Dawodu, and Dawodu really just outproduced him there. He could lose a decision here at Lucas Almeida. But for me, for my money, I'm going to back Trizano, and I'm going to back Trizano via decision. That's how I'm thinking. And for the 9,000 options, where there's no real reason, anything that we have seen to this point, where he will pay that 9,100 price tag. There's other fighters on the card that will pay that price tag a little bit better. So he's probably the fade of the 9,000, but with that comes a ton of leverage if he does go out there and change his strategy.
That's something I talk about every single week is when you're an Also Plus member, you get access to our ownership projections. One of the things I'm always looking at is who are those 9,000 options that are just not getting a high ownership. And that's something you have to always look forward to. And of course, if you want to get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content we have out there for nearly every DFS sport, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus Platinum Pass. Of course, this gives you full access to all the premium content tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, our premium Discord channel, and so much more. And if you're a new user of Also Plus Platinum, we've got a great offer for you today, as you can save 50% off your first month of Also Plus Platinum. All you have to do is click the link in the video description below to activate this offer, or you can head over to our join page and use the promo code MMA Strategy Show. That's all caps, one word, MMA Strategy Show, for 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Again, this is for new users only. And if you're just interested in playing MMA DFS, then you can sign up for an Awesemo Plus MMA package as low as $295 weekly. Of course, Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not in our base package, but can easily be added at checkout. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Pete, let's move over to the next matchup. This will be a female matchup. You got Silva taking on Botello. Botello, the underdog in this one at 8,000, 8,200 for the debuting fighter coming off the Dana White's Contender Series. And, Botello, yesterday she talked about the fact that she knows, she fully believes that her job is on the line here. And when you look at her lack of success in her past couple fights, no question, she's got to get a win to stay in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, women's MMA this week is something outside of the Blanchfield fight where I'm torn and not necessarily interested, just because it's so much volatility and unknowns and wide range of outcomes and all that stuff that we're not sure of what can happen here. So Karine Silva in Dana White's Contender Series, powerful wrestling, questionable gas tank, solid submission skills, pulling out a Botello, good striking, in the wrestling department, and jiu-jitsu, she's all right. My issue is just the cardio of her as well. So you have two fighters with poor cardio. You have Botello, who has a stronger strength of schedule, and mainly just because she's fought under the UFC banner. She's fought Luana Carolina, Jillian Robertson, Cynthia Calvillo. Mueller, Kondo, and Gonzalez are not necessarily UFC level, but it's still experience under the lights of the UFC. I'm really like, it's the Calvillo and the Robertson and Carolina fights where it's like, okay, she's been here before, and I think that she can handle adversity against a newcomer a little bit better. I mean, just having a newcomer come in off Dana White's Contender Series as a favorite is something to be somewhat skeptical about. And Karine Silva, outside of like having strong wrestling, her striking, I think, will fall behind Botello, and her submission defense doesn't necessarily look the best. Now, offensively, she's okay, but defensively, she makes mistakes. And I'm going to back Poliana Botello slightly, just coming from a stronger camp in Nova União. And this smells like, armbar from guard. It really does, Jason. Like, I'm telling you, it's probably going to happen. And I'm going to slightly lean towards Poliana Botello, but literally, this is a volatile fight between two fighters with poor cardio and lower level skills. So it's a lean towards Botello for me.
When you talk about Nova União, I think Andre Pedneris, and after when the last UFC card with Holly Holm and Caitlin Vieira, watched on the couch. My wife is sitting next to me, and as Andre Pedneris is just giving it to Caitlin Vieira after the fourth round. I mean, he's being brutally honest. I mean, let's be honest about it. He was definitely a coach who did not think his fighter was winning the fight. Very clearly, my wife looks at me, she goes, "Is he going to talk to her like that?" I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, but you need that, though. And that's like, for me, I've looked into a lot of Karine Silva and who she's training with, and so many unknowns. So I'm going to back the stronger team, the stronger coach, the stronger camp, and not necessarily a narrative that I like to back a lot, but in a close fight, that's how I'm going to judge it.
Next up, we got Osborne taking on Adeshev. Osborne, 8,900, 7,300 for Adeshev.
Man, I'm going to be rooting for my boy Zaruk. I really am. I know Zaruk, and I don't know. They're not necessarily giving him the easiest matchups. The Benoit fight was fine. Fighting Tyson Nam on a short notice was terrible. And then following it up against Sumu Derji, like, man, the UFC is really not giving him any help at all. But I mean, you're in the UFC and you should be expecting to take on tough challengers. Now, the issue here in this fight for my boy Zaruk is that he's going to have an 8-inch reach disadvantage against Ode Osborne. Mm-hmm. Ode Osborne, a southpaw and very dynamic. So like he can mix in takedowns, which is something I think where Zaruk could possibly fall behind just because of being the smaller fighter in this situation. And Zaruk is talented on the feet. I am worried about just the length of Osborne. So I'm going to personally be rooting for my buddy, but I do think that Ode Osborne has some of the best like sneaky potential on the slate given his salary. So he's sitting there at 8,900. But he has some decent round one percentage, and anything similar to the Jerome Rivera fight could happen here. And he could also go to the takedown well, where against CJ Vergara, he attempted 7 takedowns. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a finish. It could just be a well-rounded performance. And Ode Osborne at 8,900 could smash that salary. So I hope Zaruk pulls it off, but I think Ode Osborne's clearly the side.
Yeah, I mean, and looking at some of our ownership projections, Ode does pop off a little bit to me just based on what we're seeing at ownership projections for him. And, you mentioned about potentially a first round finish, and can he use that sizable reach advantage he has in this one? Next up, we got a matchup that I think the more to talk about this fight probably has been about what's going on with Askar. What has been going on outside of the actual in competition with him. Of course, he's taking on Alonzo Menifield 8,700, Askar 7,500. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go over to Sherdog, and they wrote a piece basically about the fact of his team was basically trying to inflate his record. And if you've noticed, his record has drastically changed over the past couple of days. I want to say at one point he was like 21-7, maybe 25-7, something like that. He's now 19-12 on Tapology. Basically, and Sherdog outlined some of the issues they've gone through there. But this fight has got GPP written all over it. This fight probably doesn't hit round 2, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, this fight to me just is violence, and the violence play is the under, as Jason has alluded to on our Odd Shopper video, and I think that this is probably going to be a part of the optimal lineup. Anytime that there's a dangerous round 1 guy, you have to have interest, and I think that Askar Mozharov is getting a lot of negative press this week, and deservedly so, right? But with all that negative press could come in overcompensation in ownership, where people aren't necessarily respecting his round 1 ability. I understand that you go through his record and you see that he's primarily a fraud, but he actually has skills. Like if you actually go back and you watch when he's the one pressing forward and being the bully, that's what he is. He's a bully in there. When he's able to bully his opponents and he's able to get off combinations first, he looks good. His kicks are pretty phenomenal, honestly. Like he could go out there and spin and hook kick Alonzo Menifield, and next thing you know, everybody's talking about how talented this guy is. That's how dynamic he is. But he can get reversed in positions. He can get out wrestled, and then he can quit as well. So like if Alonzo Menifield presses the issue and goes forward with zero respect, punches him in the face and says, hey, this is the UFC, you could see a situation where Menifield smashes that salary. And I think that is the more logical and more likely situation. 8,700, one of the best pound for pound values on the slate for a fight that is not going to go the distance. If it goes the distance, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do because I just don't predict it to go the distance. Menifield 8,700 is going to be an incredible play. But with that being said, if nobody's getting, I'm going to wait for ownership. If nobody's getting to Mozharov, round 1 guys, like similar to Petrosky, right, where everybody was thinking Maximov, including myself, was going to outclass him. If they have a path to victory, it's in round 1. And that's where Mozarov's the most dangerous. So he needs some exposure.
So I'll mention, so this was an article written by Cage Side Press where Mozharov did an interview yesterday with the media, and the article says there was some confusion and lead up to his UFC debut about his professional fight record. He explained why the change was made. Quote, I spent so much time since the age of 18 fighting professional fights, fighting pretty much anyone that I could. A lot of the fights I had were in China. The organizations they had didn't add fights after, so you have to really pursue it to make sure they add the fights that you have to, so they make sure that they have it on record.
that sentence hurt my brain, Jason.
This is actually a situation that lasts 7 or 8 years. No one mentioned anything. No one said anything. Now, when I get up to the biggest promotion, I'm in the UFC, I guess someone or one of the admins wants to prove to himself. It's a little bit weird, right? Well, apparently Sherdog has receipts on this, bro. And Sherdog outlines the fact of he's changed his name a couple of times.
Yeah.
And one thing that can't be denied is the fact of you look at a majority of his career, you look at the victories, not great competition.
No, not great competition. And a lot of the competition quits when the going gets tough.
Here's what I'll say is if Alonzo Menifield wins and the UFC parts ways with him after one fight, that would be very telling. And also remember, he had a USADA suspension as well. So
yeah, this guy's a headache, right? Like he's just a headache for the promotion, and not every fighter that poses all these problems. The promotion's not going to work with everybody. You know what I mean? Like the Diaz brothers and all that, like, and even some prospects, they'll work with you and be like, all right, let's get through this tough time and possibly see. This could just be like, he's too much to deal with. It's just drama. So let's part ways with him. So,
but I don't know how you avoid this fight in GPPs.
No, you can't. Truthfully, just given the salary. I mean, Menifield, for a UFC fighter at 8,700 with all this experience against William Knight, Ed Herman, Fabio Charant, OSP. Now the OSP fight didn't go his way, and he ran into a shot and got knocked out in the second round. I'm telling you right now that Mozarov has power in his hands and he has incredible kicks. So if Menifield goes out there and doesn't respect him and he gets a little too wild, he could run into a shot. This happens all the time. But I have to tell you the most logical situation, and that's that Menifield walks right through Mozarov.
Now, as much as I like getting that fight in GPP, the next fight I really don't want to get in GPPs. That's Felice Herrig and Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I think the rematch that I don't know if anybody was asking for. 8,300 for Felice Herrig, 7,900 for Kowalkiewicz. What the storyline with Felice Herrig heading into this will be her first fight since coming back from a major knee injury. She has not been very active even before the knee injury. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, now trained out at ATT. This is, like, I look at this from a GPP aspect, Pete, and I'm going, okay, how is this fight optimal? Great price tag on both fighters. Let's, when we're talking about building lineups, but as I think about how I think this fight's playing out, I just don't see how this fight's optimal, Pete.
I was thinking that, and then I went back into the log, and I'm sitting there and I see, the first victory for Karolina Kowalkiewicz over Felice Herrig. She scored 90.33 points. So at 7,900, that's a pretty solid score. Yeah. The thing is that there's 14 fights on this card. So the chances of 90 getting into the optimal, I think, are less than a smaller card. Whereas, like, I think you might have 6 fighters with 100 points. Like, truthfully, everybody's going to have 100 points. And how the hell can you trust Karolina Kowalkiewicz to this point? I mean, she's lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights in a row to Jessica Penne, Yan Jianan, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Waterson, Jessica Andrade. Now, that's like some solid competition, a split decision over Felice Herrig and a win over Jody Escobar. But, like, I mean, this girl, outside of throwing 1-2s and just straight punches and volume, I don't necessarily think that she's all that skilled. And I think she's a shell of herself since that Jessica Andrade KO loss. Like, certain fighters, you see them, they're different. They've changed. She threw 232 strikes against Alexa Grasso, who I hold in high regard. She only landed 90 of them, and she scored 37 in a loss. Felice Herrig, how the hell do you back her? Or how do you have confidence in her as well? I mean,
that was exactly the point I was going to bring up to you.
Yeah, like, I mean, I can say the same thing about both. And this is literally the most difficult fight for me on the entire slate. And I just might take a hands-off approach where I might not even touch the fight. And if it happens to make it into the optimal lineup, then so be it. But, like, I'd rather not sit there and sweat out this fight. I mean, it's women's MMA, and neither one of them have typically scored the best. My thing is, if Felice Herrig goes out there with a wrestling heavy game plan, that's how she could win rounds here. Attempted 5 takedowns against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, was unsuccessful against, in all 5. Took Michelle Waterson down once out of 4 times. So I don't know. She's training with my buddy Valley Flow and Valley Flow striking. So it's like, I think her striking might be a little bit better than it used to be, but I just really have no damn idea. Like, I really have no idea. Do you have a confident lean in this one?
No. I mean,
if you're talking volume, then it's got to be a pick towards Karolina Kowalkiewicz, as my buddy Aiden suggests. And volume could be a factor. And that's how, like, we see women's MMA sometimes make it into the optimal lineup, where it's like, high volume fight, they stand up, neither one will get taken down, and they score 95 points. Like, given 7,900 salary, that's fine. But, man, goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is a fight that I would probably be more interested in looking at some of the props over at Prize Picks. Like Fleece Hair, her number is 70.5 significant strikes. I mean, I think that's something to look at over there. Of course, this show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Of course, over at Prize Picks, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Be sure to use that promo code Awesemo. And of course, you can use all the prop tools we have over awesemo.com, help build your lineups. And hopefully you got on these props a little earlier in the week. Those Alonzo Minifield props that aren't there right now. Hopefully you got on those props, but I'll tell you a fight time prop that I do like. I like the over 19 on Alexander Volkov here in terms of fight time.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I'm predicting the fight's going to go. If Giazino touches him and he knocks him out, it's not going to work well for us. But I do think Volkov over is nice.
Yeah, I mean, look at some other ones that kind of stick out to me. We're going to talk about Joe Selecki here in a minute. That over 2 takedowns is something that's kind of interesting to me, just because you know what his pedigree is. I mean, he's a grappler. He wants to get the matchup to the ground over there. That's going to be something. Evelev 3.5 takedowns is another one. If that number got to 3, I'd really like the over. I don't think it's going to get to 3.
I think that's a good one. Honestly, I think that's a sneaky good one because Dan Ige is going to be talented enough to work back to his feet and he could get taken down again. And it's not like he has a Nick Lentz guillotine to necessarily threaten with. So I actually like the over on that, truthfully.
And if your mindset is like me, thinking that we're going to see 5 rounds in the main event, I like the over on total strikes land for Alexander Volkov, which is 79.5. If that thing goes 25 minutes, I would be shocked he doesn't get at least 80 significant strikes.
Yeah, he might throw 50 front kicks. So I think that's a good number to target.
Of course, be sure to check out our sponsor, Prize Picks, and be sure to use that promo code Awesemo. They got instant first match deposit of up to $100. I will tell you, I'll be over on Prize Picks later on today, making all of my my props for tonight's NBA playoff game. Because Pete, here's what I'm just going to say: they're going to chuck some threes. They
yes,
are.
Sir.
They are. That's one of those lines over on the NBA side. They always look at 3-pointers made because you just know, in today's NBA.
Oh yeah, of course.
They chuck them. Yeah.
I can't wait, truthfully, for the fight for the game. And I'll be dabbling in some parlays and possibly, mixing in some NBA with some MMA picks.
No doubt about it. Chris mentioned about Joe Selecki. He's the next matchup we're going to talk about. Joe Selecki taking on Alex da Silva. 8,800 for Selecki, 7,400 for Alex da Silva. And when I think of Joe Selecki, I think of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Joe Selecki, truthfully. I mean, he has been competing on the the grappling circuit, just staying active. And I really like how fighters are doing that because, listen, we need money. So, if we're not getting fights and they're able to stay active and it's going to level them up and keep that competition mindset, I love it. So, Selecki's been staying active and looking damn good. His grappling is so strong.
Here's an interesting note for you. John Morgan, who does play-by-play for CFFC, and they do those Fury grappling.
Yeah,
he was saying that the one thing the UFC puts in as a stipulation, if any of their fighters do a grappling event, no heel hooks.
I love it. Yeah, it's because it could be a career ender. I like that. Yeah, I do like that. I mean,
I don't know if you heard about what happened last Saturday at the Fury grappling event.
No.
So Clay Guida was supposed to take on Alex Caceres. Caceres gets to I want to say it was in New Jersey, maybe in AC. If not AC, maybe Philly. And gets off the plane and he's just having back spasms. Can't, and
I saw who stepped in. Yeah.
The CFFC president, who, by the way, is a black belt. Apparently, John Morgan telling the story. He goes, it's like an hour and a half before he's supposed to go grapple Clay. He's working away because he's the president of the organization. And he goes in there and he said, he goes, guy, I want to say his first name is Brad. He admitted to him, he goes, I had roll a lot this year. And he goes, unfortunately, leg locks are my thing.
That's funny. And Guida had no mercy. And I think he submitted one an arm triangle, if I remember correctly. And just he choked the hell out of him. But props to him for stepping up on short notice.
Yeah, to step up there. But yeah, I thought that just like, mentioning kind of what you're talking about, made me think about the fact of, the one stipulation the UFC has is no heel hooks, because how many times have we seen in an MMA fight where someone lands a heel hook and, they're going to be gone for a while.
Yeah, and it's a good point, and I actually really like that rule. And Joe Solecki's been staying active, and his jiu-jitsu is just incredible. It's the fact of accepting position on his back if he gets in that situation. And I think that Alex De Silva deserves some sprinkles here, truthfully, because at 7,400, he looked damn good against Brad Riddell. And the box score doesn't necessarily show that. He scored 54 in a loss, went 3 of 9 in the takedown department. If he attempts the same takedowns against Joe Solecki, he could be running into a very quick submission loss. And I think that he needs to, scramble and possibly reverse positions against Joe Solecki, because Solecki's going to be hunting the back, and or De Silva needs to keep this on the feet, because if this is on the feet, I think De Silva has a better chance than Solecki. Solecki needs to close distance and initiate the grappling ASAP. So outside of a few sprinkles for De Silva winning a decision in a striking battle or possibly knocking him out, I think the more likely situation is Solecki takes him down, gets the back, and gets a submission finish inside the distance. I mean, he could ground and pound him, but I think that his submission chops are just, excellent. So 8,800, one of the best values on the slate as well. It's just the worry if he doesn't get the takedown.
Yeah, it's that's the one thing when you're talking about submission experts and trains out there, Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu, which is run by John Salter, the Bellator middleweight. But Joe Solecki would be a guy that you got to be looking for in terms of getting that submission finisher. Next up, we got a matchup of Damon Jackson taking on a fighter stepping up here on short notice, Dan Argueta. Argueta coming off a title win in LFA, a 25-minute split decision victory, stepping up here. And Damon Jackson looked absolutely fabulous in his last fight, has a new contract now with the UFC. Pete, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally everybody's going to like, Damon Jackson. So if you don't get the Blanchfield, Jackson looks like 1A, 1B to 1A. Like I really love Blanchfield this week, but you're getting a sizable favorite here at 9,500, and a guy that's, competing a weight class higher in Dan Argueta. So, I mean, this could be a situation where the wrestling cancels each other out, or Jackson just has the superior wrestling. Throughout his career, he's not the most trustworthy fighter. I think that he's a very solid fighter, but his striking defense, he can get hit really hard. And he has been, submitted in the past as well. But like, I think that the experience of Damon Jackson against a relatively green Dan Argueta, if you want to compare the two, is just going to be enough here. I mean, even striking, Damon Jackson could have moments. It's just if their wrestling cancels each other out, what happens? Does he pay off that price tag? Probably not. So, like, I still like Damon Jackson, but this is like, there's another 9,000 fighter I can't wait to talk about that I really want to get exposure to. So it's a Damon Jackson win for me. Like Dan Argueta landing takedowns against Jackson is just silly, because like, you do that, you're going to get the Mirsad Bektic treatment where you're going to get submitted. And Bektic is a fantastic talent, but getting submitted late against Damon Jackson just proves how live he always is to pull off a victory from the jaws of defeat.
And Forrest is one of those gyms that we do like to back there, what they've been doing there. Of course, under a safe Saud there. Next up, we got a matchup of Solzhe and St. Denise. 7,700 for Solzhe, 8,500 for St. Denise. Pete, what's your take?
I'll tell you what, St. Denis is a very, very, very tough fighter. He's so tough. And the fight should have been stopped a lot earlier than it was in his debut. But granted, it was against a massive step up of competition. And he was super aggressive with, in the takedown department, just hunting takedowns. But he ate a lot of punches with his face. And, his striking defense was completely non-existent. So he went 2 of 14 in the takedown department, but his lack of control time is what allowed Zaleski Dos Santos back to his feet. And Dos Santos just punished him everywhere throughout the fight. So this is an interesting spot where we have Stolze, a guy who I thought was going to, look better in the UFC. Mm-hmm. And he's had some tough competition. Going up against Hamazan Ameev and Jared Gooden, 2 tough fighters, but I don't think his performances necessarily reflect how talented he is. I'm expecting Solzhe just to be a little bit better for 15 minutes. St. Denis is a very dangerous round one type of guy, goes out there, hunts finishes in the submission department. But Solzhe, sprawl and brawl mentality and showcasing coming from a stronger camp in Syndicate MMA is why I'm leaning in his direction at 7,700. And I think everybody could be onto this where St. Denis just took too much punishment. So how does he look in his return fight? He could literally just get lit up and possibly finished, or, that questionable gas tank, despite the toughness, just, makes Solzhe one of the best underdogs on the slate. But it's not necessarily a confident play because St. Denis takes you down and over and over and over, you don't have a chance to necessarily win the fight.
Next up, we got a matchup that's supposed to take place a couple of years ago in King of the Cage. Now it takes place inside the UFC octagon. Tony Gravely and Johnny Munoz Jr. 8,400 for Tony Gravely, 7,800 for Munoz. Obviously, if you're Johnny Munoz, when you get this fight to the ground, Tony Gravely, I feel like he can win this fight wherever it goes, but obviously Munoz's best shot is if it goes to mat.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Gravely, and I know that you really like Gravely. But I think we might be split on the pick this week, truthfully. I think that I might be taking some shots on Johnny Munoz just because of his submission ability. And I know Tony Gravely's literally fought so many of these guys throughout his career and, training with strong people down in American Top Team for some time. You're dealing with those talented submission artists every single day. And he went 11 of 15 in the takedown department against Simon Oliveira. It's just a lean towards Oliveira for me. I mean, it's a lean towards Johnny Munoz for me because I don't know. I'm not too confident in too many underdogs. And I do think the grappling can somewhat negate each other. I think the kicks of Johnny Munoz are a sneaky little a part of his game. And I just think that as the going gets tough and Gravely is met with some resistance on some of these takedowns, he could fall into a submission. The better minute winner and the better fighter overall, 15 minutes, is Tony Gravely, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Johnny Munoz is a bad play at 7,800. Yeah. So I'm back in Johnny Munoz.
Yeah, look, we talk about it every week. One punch, one takedown, one kick can ultimately change everything. I mean, like, to me, if you tell me this fight plays on the feet, I think it's Tony Gravely's fight to lose. If the fight goes to the ground, that's where it does become more interesting. I do like Tony Gravely in this spot. Like the price point, but I understand that there are definitely reasons to take shot there on Johnny Munoz. Next up, we got Zalgiris taking on Molina. Molina 9,000, 7,200 for Zalgiris. I'm pretty sure this is not the 9,000 fighter that you were alluding to.
No. And, you and I talked about this yesterday of how, I really like Jeff Molina, but it comes down to strength of schedule. So Molina's look great, but, he was losing large parts of that Arichi Lang fight, but also Daniel Lacerda, it looks like a true bust. Lacerda going out there and getting submitted pretty quickly to Bad Figueiredo, just I don't know, it kind of doesn't reinforce my feelings of Jeff Molina. It's kind of well, I don't think Lacerda was all that talented to begin with. And despite the fluffy record, I think that there's holes in it. Molina finds himself in bad grappling situations throughout. And Zhalgas Zhumagulov has literally fought talented fighters. Ali Bagatinov, Tyson Nam. I mean, crazy fighters, and has wins over them in the regional scene. In the UFC, he has an ugly box score. Lost to Raulian Paiva, doesn't do it justice because I thought that in that fight that he looked good. He has sneaky takedowns, and that is literally the path to victory here against Jeff Molina. Don't stay on the outside and don't get lit up from the long Molina. Just close the distance, incorporate takedowns, train in an American Top Team, rebound from this devastating loss, this KO loss to Manel Kopp, and don't run into something stupid. So I'm going to be back in Zhalgas Zhumagulov because of the wrestling upside at 7,200. But man, I really like Molina. And I don't necessarily always go against, I never go against James Krause's gyms. It's pretty rare for me, and I'm going to do so this week.
Watch yourself there.
I know. I don't do it. I don't do it, but I'm going to go with Zhalgas Zhumagulov.
Yeah, no question about it. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see after the fights are over are those winning screenshots. So we want to see you go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame this week. Of course, all you got to be doing is rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. When you finish in the top 3 of a contest of over 5,000 contestants, you can go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Just got to tweet those wins to at Awesemo HOF. You'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Congratulations there to Ugly 8 Game, taking down 2 different NBA contests last Friday, winning 70,000 in one and 7,000 other. Kudos to you, what you were able to do there. Also, you had J187 taking down second place in 2 different MLB contests over there on FanDuel, collected over $7,000. Kudos to you. Also, congratulations, Jordan, taking down second place in a MLB contest, winning $40,000 with only 3 bullets. Kudos to you, what you were able to do there. Also, you had Tall Tale taking on $1,500 in an MLB contest. You got to check out all the great coverage we have for MLB for you here. Of course, live before lock later on today. Also, you had Monk taking down $500 there in an MLB contest. Also, you had Dom taking down a showdown contest over there for NBA. Kudos to you, and love to see everyone go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame this week. Love to see those winning screenshots there for this week's UFC Vegas number 56. 2 more matchups to go, and I think we have now gotten to the 9,000 fighter that Pete loves. Well, I know he loves him because he told me this last night.
Yeah, I love Renat Fakhretdinov. I really do. I think that he has great round 1 potential. And I think that he could get us a solid score. And he's training an American Top Team, and that's kind of like my narrative this week. Is like, all right, if I'm liking a fighter already, what really puts a stamp on it and solidifies my decision is if they're coming from a strong camp. And training an American Top Team, it's the best of the best. There's no team better. They have everything. They have the best wrestling rooms. They have tons of top talent throughout there that you can train with on the daily and prepare you, and great coaching staff as well. So I really like Renat here at 9,200, and I think that he has multiple paths to victory. He could knock out Andreas Michailidis, who has been knocked out plenty of times throughout his career. I think almost in all of his defeats, if not all of them. And, Renat really pushes the issue and can engage in wrestling as well. And I think that's a sneaky spot that a lot of people aren't necessarily taking into consideration this week. Andreas Michailidis can get takedowns, but I don't think that he's the better wrestler here against Renat. I think that Renat can chain together the better takedowns, get in top position, rain down heavy ground and pound. And he has some sneaky chokes as well. So I really like Renat inside the distance against Andreas Michailidis. And Michailidis in his UFC tenure has taken a lot of damage. The elbows, against Modestas Bukauskas, but also the last knockout loss to Alex Pereira. So it's Renat Fakhretdinov for me, and I think the UFC knows what they're doing in this situation. And at 9,200, if you don't want to pay the premium for Blanchfield, who we'll get to, or you don't want to pay 9,500 for Damon Jackson, I think that Renat's a popular pivot and one that I'll be overweight to for sure.
To me, that's going to be part of the roster construction for this week is what 9,000 fighters do you also start building lineups around. You mentioned about Erin Blanchfield. She'll be in the opening fight of the night. She's 9,600, taking on JJ Aldrich at 6,600. I mean, look, we talked about the beginning of the show. The ceiling is through the roof for Erin Blanchfield. But to me, the question mark with this one is, can she pay off the price tag?
It's a good question, and it's also relative to the rest of the slate and see how the other fights go. But I don't see why she can't take JJ Aldrich down to Takedown City, and I don't see why she can't submit her or finish her on the mat. And I know it's not a common outcome for JJ Aldrich, and Aldrich has literally faced so many names within the UFC, and it's a good litmus test for her. Like, it really is. It's a perfect next fight for Blanchfield, who really ran right through Miranda Maverick and Sarah Alpar, which you can expect that. But a lot of people had high hopes for Miranda Maverick, and I think Blanchfield's the one that should be hyped. Her jiu-jitsu is just incredible. She attempted 8 takedowns against Miranda Maverick, who's really, really strong, and she landed 7 of them. So I really like that. She had 12 minutes of control time, and she landed 3 of 3 takedowns against Sarah Alpar. So, I mean, like on the feet, you got to worry about JJ Aldrich landed that sneaky left hand of hers. I just think that Blanchfield, she's a smash play. Anything, it's like getting, I don't know, she's one of my favorite fighters within the women's MMA right now. So there's no way I'm going to avoid her. I'll probably be level with the field, but there's plenty of talented 9,000 options that could, have the same production as her at a cheaper price.
The one thing that would concern me, Pete, and you mentioned about those stats against Miranda Maverick, the 7 takedowns, 12 minutes control time. It was a decision win. She scored 115 DraftKings points.
Yeah.
Is 115 at 9,600 going to be enough?
No, it's not. No, she needs JJ Aldrich to be tough. She needs to get ragdolled for a little bit, and then she needs to score 120 and over. And that's. I think that 130 would be amazing. And I think JJ Aldrich, I don't know, man. Like this could be just a dominant showing for Blanchfield again. And we could see like Colby Covington numbers in here. So I don't know. I really like Blanchfield, and I'm just gonna trust the skill, but I'll be level with the field.
Let's get into our straight up fight picks before we get into Sam's super chat. Main event, Volkov and Rozenstruck. I will take Alexander Volkov.
Yeah, Volkov for me.
Co-main event, I'll go Evelev.
I want to pick Ige, but I'm going Evelev.
Give me Trezano against Almeida.
Trezano.
The next one is just a coin flip for me. God, I'll go Patello, but don't feel good about it.
I'm going Patello, but I hate it.
I'll go Ode Osborne against Adeshev.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Ode Osborne, but I'll be rooting for my buddy.
I'll go Alonzo Minifield.
Minifield. This one's terrible.
Oh man. Give me Kovacevic.
I'll go Felice Eric to be different, but truthfully, zero faith.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the do not trust fight of the week.
Oh yeah,
it has to be that fight.
That's terrible.
Give me Joe Selecki.
I'll
take Damon Jackson. I'll go with you with the Solzhe upset call.
Yeah, it's okay, but I'm going Solzhe.
I'll go Gravely against Munoz.
I'm going Munoz.
Give me Jeff Molina.
Zalgish Jumagalov.
I'll go Hanat. And Aaron Blanchfield.
Blanchfield, baby.
All right, Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat with his usual questions. So let's just start off with his over-under number. Sam, you do realize there's 14 fights, right?
Sam, I compliment you, Sam, and then you come out with this line. I don't know. Remember the last time I ragged on Sam in a joking manner, and then he was like perfect, like he would have been living in a mansion.
I'm just saying, when it's 14 fights, it's hard for me to say under 6.5. I gotta go over. I gotta go over, Sam. Yeah, I mean, there's certain fights you look at and say, man, that's got a good chance to go decision, but man, just too many fights. And this is just like on paper, this is not a sexy UFC card.
No.
We both know this, but more times than not, these are the cards that ultimately deliver.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really surprised they got Blanchfield as the first fight of the night. It kind of pisses me off, to be honest, because I just look at the rest of the card and I'm like, yo, JJ Aldrich has so many fights in the UFC, and you're going to put Karine Silva and Poliana Botello up the card like that? Like, are you kidding me? What are we doing?
The Botello Silva on the main card is surprising to me.
What are we doing?
I was a little surprised when I saw Herrick and Kovacevic was on the prelims on the main card. I thought they would have put them on the main card just based on name value.
I think that should be the first fight of the night. That thing's terrible.
I mean, hell, I would probably put the Zalgiris Molina fight on the main card over Silva and Botello.
That's what I don't understand. Like, I don't know. It's got to be because it's like a large Brazilian crowd tuning in to two Brazilian fighters facing off. Possibly. I don't know.
Could be. Top 2 cash plays.
I'm going to go with Blanchfield and Damon Jackson, but that's such a cop out. So I will go Blanchfield and Renat Fakhretdinov.
Yeah, Blanchfield's got to be number 1 for me. If I was going to label it number 2,
probably Jackson, no?
Yeah, probably Damon Jackson. Yeah. GPPs. First off, I'm looking at that Minifield NASCAR fight, so I do like Minifield in that one. In terms of other GPPs, like, man, if Evelev goes a takedown route, he could, because I don't, even though he's calling for winning a first round stoppage, I don't see that one happening. That's just
what he said. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, so someone mentioned that to me today. I mean, look, Ige's a tough dude. I mean, you just look at the guys he's gone against. Evelev has a chance to be a slate breaker with just, say he gets 2 takedowns per round. There's 6 takedowns right there. Where are 30 points?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just don't see him finishing Ige. I mean, he could, but so like for GPPs, kind of to piggyback for Sam's question, do you view Volkov and Rozenstruck as a priority this week?
No,
I don't either. There's so many fights. I'm going to get to it, but I don't think like taking an aggressive stance is necessary.
To me on the Rozenstruck aspect, if you're counting on a first or second round stoppage, I think if you're Volkov, I think you're more looking at the volume of strikes, 25 minutes where he just racks up points. I look at other fights on this card as more priority for me than getting to the main event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that Rozenstruck has shown even in that Overeem fight that until the last bell sounds, he's live to pull off the upset. So like, it's going to be a sweat if you're backing Volkov no matter what, but I don't necessarily view it as a priority for GPPs.
Top underdogs.
Oh God. I mean, for me, I think Zhalgas Zhumagulov, despite not showing his skill in the UFC, strong camp, wrestling upside. Like wrestling upside is something that is going to make you my favorite underdog on the slate. And that's where I'd have to side with him. Where I think like Solzhe could go out there and put a beating on Saint Denis, but I would much rather back the resume of Zhalgas Zhumagulov.
Top favorite inside the distance for me. I'm looking at that Minifield fight.
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, you mentioned that. I really like Renat Fakhretdinov too. I think it's sneaky.
In terms of leverage plays, it's a guy that's not known for finishes, Trezano.
Yeah. He's talked about it in the media. So like it all comes down to this is our first look Saturday when we see the weigh-ins tomorrow, and we can kind of recalibrate and see what we like, if there's any changes. But like, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to think that the same thing's going to happen. Giazino wins a close decision. Dart
throw to me, I would throw out Dan Ige. Even though I don't like him to win the fight, but I just think price point, even if it's he goes out there and gets you 70 points. I mean, at that price tag, it's going to allow you to get to a lot of things.
It is. And I tell you, that was my initial build, was putting Ige in there just to mess around and see who I could get to. And man, you could get to so many talented fighters.
In terms of top optimal plays, I've mentioned the Minifield fight. The other fight that I'd mention, I think, is a top optimal play, Osborne and Adeshev.
I agree with that. I mean, like, Osborne's cardio is questionable, but his skills and his round 1 and 2 finishing potential for a division not necessarily known for finishes is pretty crazy. So he could be one of the sneakiest on the slate. And, credit to my buddy Zaruk, like over 15 minutes, he can put together a good game plan of just like picking up the volume and making Osborne tire. So I'll be getting shares of my buddy, and, mainly because I hope that he pulls it off.
The ultimate question of that fight is, can he overcome that reach disadvantage that he has in the matchup? That to me is what it comes down to.
I think it might be too tough.
Yeah. Of course, I appreciate everyone tuning in for the Awesemo.com MMA strategy show. Of course, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. That does help us out a lot as well. Of course, just subscribe to Awesemo. Be sure to do that. Hit that notification bell so you know when the show is live here on the channel. Of course, we got you covered starting 6 o'clock tonight. MLB live before lock. Then 7 will be NBA deeper dive. And then just shortly after 8 o'clock, it will be NBA live before lock. Get you ready for game 1 of the NBA finals. We'll be back on Saturday, noon Eastern time, for live before lock. Hopefully everyone has a great Thursday. We will talk to you on Saturday during live before lock. Have a good day, everybody.